Let's talk de Quervains tenosynovitis. So this is an example of an injury pattern where a lot of people get pain in the same area from these tendons and from the sheath on it gliding there and becoming inflamed. And so the doctor who discovered that, that's why it's named de Quervains tenosynovitis. So what is tenosynovitis? So every tendon is obviously coming from a muscle and attaching to a bone, and it has a sheath around it that allows it to glide in really tight areas. And so it reduces the amount of friction. So for these two tendons, we have an abductor coming from the ulna attaching to the base of the first metacarpal, and then an extensor, and these are thumb muscles, so they're pollicis muscles. So anytime you see the word pollicis in it, that's going to be referring to the thumb, just like the hallucis is referring to the great toe. Pollicis is referring to the thumb. So our abductor pollicis longus ulna to base of the first metacarpal, and then our extensor pollicis brevis running from our radius to our base of our first proximal phalanx. And so those muscles are going to extend and abduct. So when you look at the thumb, whenever we're doing abduction, we're spreading our hands, and then extending, we're going back. So it's really kind of a combo motion. Most of the time, if you're abducting, there's some kind of extension, and if you're extending, there's some kind of abduction. So these two muscles also run through the same tunnel. So the hand has a bunch of tunnels that all those muscles that I talked about, the flexors and extensors of the hand and wrist, are running from the elbow down and connecting into the hand through these tunnels. For example, a very popular tunnel is the carpal tunnel, and it's popular because there is a nerve that runs with muscles, and when those flexor muscles get inflamed, they put pressure on the nerve, which then causes the tingling sensation that a lot of people have, which is another injury pattern type of injury. So for this, they get the same pain. So the pain is usually pain. So these tendons are going to extend and abduct. So you're going to have pain either when you're actively extending or abducting, or the opposite when you are then on or deviating and you're flexing the thumb. So if you're in this position where you tuck the thumb in a fist, and then you on or deviate, so you're basically stretching out these tendons as much as you can. I feel it right now. You're going to get a ton of pain. This is very common in mothers who pick up kids. So you're extending your thumbs to put under their armpits. And so when I'm grabbing a kid, I'm doing this. Or if I am holding them like a hip sit position, if they're sitting on my side, I'm immediately going to extend back my wrist to hold them. Another example are golfers that hold their clubs. So this is a bat, but if they were holding a club and their non-dominant hand is up top, their thumb is in the isometrically extended position. So the tendon itself is just actively working, and the sheath on the outside and the tendon should be gliding side by side. So the tendon should be gliding within the tendon sheath. But when it's gliding in that tight area together, they should be kind of working together and kind of working like this. But if that muscle is overworking or is injured, it can get scar tissue and scar to the actual sheath itself, which will cause these adhesions, and it won't glide the way that it does, and it can get inflamed and stuck. When you feel this in a patient and you put your hand over any kind of tenosynovitis, so other common areas are patella tendon and triceps tendon here, because they're common like areas where they're being worked and bent a lot, and they're gliding in that area. So if the tendon itself is really overworking and it has any kind of scar tissue and is adhesing there, it almost feels squeaky. And that's the only way I can explain it, and you would know it when you feel it, but it feels a little squeaky. It's not really gliding. It's not like a smooth motion. And that's what happens here. So people get pain. When you're intervening on something that is an overuse chronic type of injury, you have to get to the bottom of why it is happening. And it's happening because you're doing a lot of repetitious overuse. So a lot of the injuries we talk about in the upper extremity in this area are overuse chronic because of our function of our hands and needing it for everyday activities. And so anytime that is happening, a lot of times it's hard to decrease that activity because it's so functional. So you basically have to wear a brace. So they do make braces for this to prevent you from going all the way into full extension and abduction. And then you do anti-inflammatories until you get it all calmed down. Once it's calmed down, then you strengthen those muscles to a point where they can withstand the amount of activity that they're doing. So this is a common example. There are lots of examples in the upper extremity of tenosynovitis and tendinopathies where the tendon itself is just being so overworked that it's breaking down. It starts out inflamed and then it breaks down. So a lot of examples in the elbow, forearm, and wrist, but this was a great injury to kind of do a spotlight on, to teach you about that and to kind of get your mind working on how we would see that, how we would intervene on that. If you have any questions about this, please reach out.